And yeah, we'll get this presentation started. All right, everyone. So welcome to our webinar. I know a lot of you have either given out the endangered species condoms or have participated in our PillowTalk events at some point. And some people have done this for multiple events or over a couple of years. But this is sort of a chance to get everyone on the same page. So I might be covering some stuff that is seen as basic or that you already know, but just want to kind of make sure I've made the same resources and information available to everyone. And my plan for this presentation is to kind of go from big to small in terms of how the endangered species condoms fit into our organization and sort of where we've been and then where we're going eventually with our volunteer involvement. So this is introducing myself. My name is Sarah Bailey. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Endangered Species Condoms Coordinator at the Center, and that is within the Population and Sustainability Program. And I've included my email, which you guys already know because I've sent a bunch of emails already. So just a little bit about me. I have a background in animal care and environmental education. So that top left picture is me holding, I believe, a red-tailed hawk as a volunteer at a wildlife rehab center in Tucson. Top right is me doing environmental education in Maryland. And then these bottom pictures are my work at the center. So bottom left, it's a picture of a speaking series we did with Planned Parenthood of Southern Arizona, helping folks or supporters from both organizations understand the intersections of our work of reproductive justice and environmental justice. And then bottom right, quintessential condom stuff. We got a billboard in Times Square and gave out condoms on Valentine's Day in New York City. So my wonderful colleague Kelly dressed as a dugong, and we had a billboard that said, "Wrap your schlong to save the dugong." So sort of a compilation of the serious work we do and the really fun work we get to do with the condoms and our messaging. And then I wanted to have Kelly, our population campaigner, introduce herself.
Thanks, Sarah. It's great to be with you all tonight. My pronouns are she, her. And I spent my childhood in Nebraska and then went to NC State, and I got my bachelor's degree in natural resources. And I started my environmental career working in the recycling industry. So that is me. I think it's on your right-hand side, but you'll see me with posing with a lot of recycling bins if you look at my Facebook page. And then I was a local recycling coordinator before moving to the state, and I kind of ran the gamut of operational, educational, and policy work in relationship to that. And then about 5 years ago, I really saw that recycling was problematic and, we needed to move upstream. And I went back and got a master's in public health where my master's degree, my master's thesis was about this intersection of consumption does not increase happiness. And so I was able to use my public health degree in that way. And at the same time, I became a certified family planning counselor just due to my personal interest in family planning and my personal experiences. So I've been really excited and happy to have landed, this perfect job where we talk about not only consumption and its impact on the environment, but population and its impact on the environment. And so similar to Sarah, the other pictures that you see were me bringing these ideas together on various college campuses last year. So we're trying to bring together like the campus health clinic or the women's center with the environmental science department or environmental science club. So that's a little bit about me. It's great meeting you all.
Thanks, Kelly. So like I said, we're going to start big with sort of the center as a whole and then work our way down and how the endangered species condoms fit into our work. So people kind of find out about the endangered species condoms at different stages because they're used as such a popular outreach tool. Sometimes that's people's first intro to the center and don't realize all the other work we do. And I realize that's actually a really important component to teach our volunteers when they're giving out the condoms to know about, what our organization as a whole does. So the Center for Biological Diversity is a national environmental nonprofit, and we've been around for over 30 years now. We do a lot of work through science and litigation to protect environmental legislation. So primarily, a lot of our staff are lawyers and scientists. And our work has won protection for over 700 endangered species and 500 million acres of critical habitat. And while Kelly and I work within the population and sustainability programs, other programs that the center is divvied up into include climate law, endangered species, energy justice, environmental health, oceans, public lands, urban wildlands, international, and our grassroots organizing wing, Mobilize for the Wild. I actually really enjoy this graphic. You'll see on the one side is just it's the list of the programs I just mentioned. And this infographic shows the breakdown of species we've helped protect. So you'll see the green symbol is plants, the purple is invertebrates, blue is fish, yellow is mammals, orange is birds, teal is amphibians, and white is reptiles. So I think it's just really cool to see like the whole range that we work with. So we do everything from protecting charismatic megafauna like grizzlies and wolves to little plants and invertebrates that probably don't get as much coverage, but are equally important to protecting biodiversity. And you'll see the one program I did not list on the side is population and sustainability, since I'm going to dive into that more. So that is the program that department that the Endangered Species Condom Project kind of lives within. So our program is a little different than the rest of the programs the center does. We don't have any lawyers in our program. There are lawsuits that tie into our work, but our program is particularly focused on outreach, education, and advocacy, with a component about the individual changes we can all make to help reduce our impact on the environment. But we also work on systematic changes that make the more sustainable choices accessible or the default for everyone. So this includes encouraging plant-based diets, reducing food waste, generating more awareness about how human population growth impacts the environment and why our patterns of consumption matter. So on this slide, I just kind of put in some examples of other campaigns and projects our program has worked on. So one of them is Take Extinction Off Your Plate. That's the one that's encouraging plant-based diets. And again, that's something as simple as we have a part of our website that just has a bunch of vegan recipes so people can see ways to try that out. But we've also done work in like campaigning to chains like Applebee's to try to get them to add more plant-based options to their menu to make that switch easier for people in like the mainstream. We also have our Beat Food Waste Challenge, which took me way too long to realize the pun there with the graphic of having actual beets. Again, that was an individual, it was like I think a Facebook group challenge we did of just getting people to make the change to have less food waste. So meal planning when you shop so you only buy what you need, how to store your food properly so it doesn't go bad so fast. And then a component to that is the Slow Road to Zero. It was a report card on US supermarkets' path to zero food waste. So we took the biggest food chain or supermarket chains and rated how they manage their food waste. And then that could be used as a way to like give them asks to make positive change. We have our Better Than Ed campaign that kind of looked at, Ed Begley Jr. did a series of PSAs for us about population and food and energy. We have Get Whacked for Wildlife, which was a campaign to get men to pledge to get vasectomies, because that is also a form of birth control. I think you could get a free t-shirt that had this polar bear with scissors on it, and it was very popular. I still get emails to this day asking if people can get their t-shirts, and this was several years ago. And then just the text down there under population and sustainability is a bunch of our current action alerts. So petitions people can sign or email different companies. So we have restoring Title 10 for family planning, protecting 30% of the US for conservation, a petition to stop COVID-19 funds from bailing out factory farms, asking supermarkets to cut their waste, telling the EPA to regulate factory farms, and then just the pledge to take extinction off your plate. So again, a lot of those individual prompt pledges, but then also asks for larger organizations. So this graphic I think is always very helpful for sort of some of the issues other groups find with talking about population. So we've got to deal with the root cause of global warming. Right, let's talk about sustainability. Let's talk clean energy, sustainable agriculture, carbon footprints. Actually, how about we talk about sustainable human population? Sorry, we don't talk about that. So with that, I want to be very explicit about what our population work looks like and what it is and is not. So a lot of things that come up, kind of buzzwords, maybe associations with population work is population control, genocide, eugenics, closing borders. That's not what we're doing. That's all really bad stuff that's been done in the name of population work. Our solutions and our work focus on human rights, women's rights, quality of life, and social justice. So a lot of and like our work consists of a lot of even just basic stuff we can all do in our day-to-day, which is starting conversations to end the taboos around talking about population. All the solutions we are advocating for are equitable, non-coercive solutions centered around voluntary family planning. So what that means is we're not saying we aren't promoting China's one-child policy or former one-child policy. We're not saying everyone should stop having kids. We just want better access to resources. So comprehensive sex ed, universal access to all forms of contraception. We also particularly focus on US population growth. And that's because of the disproportionate impact we have in the US. And I'll kind of touch on this, we'll get into this a little more later in the presentation. But we have one of the largest carbon footprints per an individual in the world. So that's a reason to specifically focus on the US. There's other groups doing global population work or work in countries with higher fertility rates. And just the one stat, if there's one stat to take away from this presentation that's worth mentioning when saying like, why is population work in the US important? It's because unplanned pregnancies, or the unplanned pregnancy rate in the US is nearly 50%. So that's what we're really aiming for improvement. And that can be definitely improved with more sex ed and better access to family planning resources. So now we're getting into the endangered species condoms themselves. So how did the Endangered Species Condom Project start? So it's been around for 11 years now. It'll be 11 years this July. And basically the center wanted to bring the population conversation back into the environmental movement, since the number of people on the planet is going to be the main driver behind all the other environmental issues we face. So, you know, while we do all this other work, public lands and climate law, basically the number of people on the planet keeps increasing. It's going to negate all these other issues. So someone had the idea to give out condoms, which would literally prevent unplanned pregnancies, but then package them with cute animals and punny phrases on the outside to make it more approachable and to use humor as an icebreaker. So you can see some of the condom art there, and I have slides with past and current designs. So if you can't see them there, we'll go through them later. And overall, these condoms, it's great because they're such a forward-facing outreach tool we have. It's a really great introduction to people about the work the center does. So while they may be on board with this population work, they can also hear about all the other cool stuff that we do. So here's some of our art. So we've got cover your tweedle, save the burying beetle, use a stopper, save the hopper, wear a Jimmy hat, save the big cat, wrap with care, save the polar bear, hump smarter, save the snail darter, and save the spotted owl, wear a condom now. So I think this was the original set that came out. We've done some changes with art over the years. It's always species that are found in North America that are particularly impacted by human population growth. So in this batch we have don't go bare, panthers are rare. When you're feeling tender, think about the hellbender. Be a savvy lover, protect the snow plover. In the sack, save the leatherback. Wrap with care, save the polar bear. Safe intercourse saves the dwarf seahorse. And this is our current iteration of art. For the sake of the horned lizard, slow down, love wizard. When you're feeling tender, think about the hellbender. We've got some repeats in here. Fumbling in the dark, think of the monarch. We've already seen the polar bear. Before it gets any hotter, remember the sea otter. And can't refrain, remember the whooping crane. We also incorporated Spanish language condoms about 3 years ago, I think. So you'll see the monarch and the polar bear there. the rhyme becomes a little different because we still wanted the Spanish language version to rhyme, and you'll see the translations beneath each of them. So protect the wolf, covering it all. Save the vaquita, don't sow your seeds. Cover your thing, protect the butterfly, and save the bear, put on your hat. So that's the Mexican wolf and then the vaquita. So those of you, if you're not familiar with the vaquita, monarch and polar bear, like pretty quintessential. They're a very tiny porpoise off of, I think, the Baja of California. I think there's less than 20 now. They get caught up in shrimp fishers as bycatch. So yeah, those are our Spanish ones. And then here are some other recent designs we've had. So Before Your Seduction, Think Footprint Reduction is a co-brand design we did with Global Footprint Network for Earth Overshoot Day, I think 2 years ago. And then the California Condor was our fun campaign for the 10-year anniversary and hitting the 1 million condom mark last summer. We picked, I think, about 20 species that are endangered species that weren't already on the package, and then had a social media contest on Twitter and Facebook for people to submit their best slogans. So out of like hundreds of submissions, we picked our top 5 that we really liked, and then put it out to a vote for everyone. And this was our winner. And it worked out really well because then it like magically coincided with the 1,000th California condor chick hatching with the captive breeding program. And like I said, with how they use humor to get the approach, this is data taken from the survey that you guys all responded to about the reactions you see to, or you've received to the condoms. So you see the vast majority of the reactions are really positive. Our top responses are humor, curious, pleased or agreement, interest, surprise. Only a very little is discomfort or anger. And even discomfort is sort of, it can be a very personal, awkward topic for some people, but you know, that it still makes it an easier entry into that conversation. So by and large, these are really well received amongst audiences. So now we know about the condoms, and how do they get out in the world? And that's through our awesome volunteers. So we have volunteers nationwide who sign up to receive the condoms to give them out wherever they want. So whether that's their campus, their community event, their youth group, even just out among their friends and family. Pretty much as long as they have a good opportunity for a conversation, we're happy to send the condoms. So here's just pictures of other volunteers have sent me over the years. So you've got spreading love to the environment, which I think was definitely a Valentine's Day distribution. We've got people dressed up as a panda. We've got someone bearded dragon with them. So people get our volunteers get super creative with this. And we have, along with this, we have a volunteer toolkit online that kind of has some nifty handouts to accompany this. But overall, the way this has worked, it's fairly hands-off. We receive the request for the condoms. We figure out if which ones seem like they have the best opportunity for conversations, and we send them out. We ask for feedback, but that's a little bit hit or miss. But we give out 100,000 condoms every year through this program. And again, like I said, last summer we hit the 1 million condom mark. So then, this is, again, a survey from the survey, a breakdown of how the condoms are given out. So, a good chunk of them are event tables or booths, like a lot of those pictures were. But the next biggest group is out and about, people who just kind of man on the street hand them out. We've got folks handing them out in classrooms. Passive is when people kind of just have the basket out, like a lot of college RAs may do that. We've got people who set up their own booths. And then we've got, a small group handing them out amongst family and friends. So sort of the next step for the condoms was the PillowTalk program, which launched 3 years ago, I believe. And the idea of PillowTalk was to extend the conversation and incorporate more of our consumption messaging through interactive activities. So all the condoms themselves are, you're getting a condom, you hear safe sex can save wildlife. But we also wanted to do a better job illustrating why the consumption part of this matters. So with that, we put together a carbon budget monopoly game. So it's a very quick activity people can play at these events to get a very quick understanding of their carbon footprint. So these events are primarily with zoos and museums at their adult-only, usually after-hours events. So this is great. It was an awesome way to reach a new audience. Folks who go to zoos and museums are usually more interested compared to the average person of ways they can reduce their own individual footprint. And because population isn't talked about, they often don't know safe sex is a great way to do that. So again, you can see reactions. People are largely positive. Definitely can get fun with some conversations. Usually these are like brew at the zoo, there's cocktails, people are having a drink and having a good time. So by and large, again, super well received at these events. Can't say enough how good they are for Valentine's Day, all the date night events. I know I've worked events where parents are there and they say they're gonna bring the condoms home to their kids, and I'm always wish I could be on the fly on the wall of those conversations of parents coming home with those. But yeah, these events, there's really good time. People enjoy the activities and the condoms. Okay, so yeah, go back to that consumption side. This is just a nice illustration of how our carbon footprint compares to others in the world. So average US resident will emit 20 tons of carbon dioxide per year, whereas the estimated world average is about 4 tons. And then in this graphic, this came from a study from MIT, just kind of showing, so you'll see this, the yellow foot is the estimated average for a US homeless person is still 8.5. So a lot of people like to say maybe overestimate what certain things like recycling do. The idea of this is even living a very low impact lifestyle in the US is inherently still higher than the average world citizen. And this is another study that came out a couple years ago that actually compares all the different impact of or classic green actions we hear about. So we hear about the importance of recycling or getting a hybrid car or going plant-based. But before this study, I actually never knew how any of these stacked up to against each other. So you'll see how they do here. So along the x-axis, you have the different actions. The y-axis is the annual reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. And all the way to the right, you'll see the impact of having one less child is far higher than the rest. So all of these, I mean, they're all good actions to take, but none of them save more than 3 tons per year, whereas having one less child saves almost 60 tons of carbon dioxide. So again, while we're not saying to not have kids or anything like that, or that there's a magic number, we just want people aware of the impact because it's something that most people don't know. And then going back to volunteers real quick, just wanted to show you guys, again, from our survey, a breakdown of who you guys are and where you are. So I did it, in the survey, we asked for birth year. I did a breakdown of where that put everyone generation-wise. Got a pretty even spread. So I think that's really cool because I think this message can resonate with a lot of different ages, and even if someone's maybe beyond their childbearing years, you're giving them the tools to have this conversation maybe with younger people. And then instead of breaking this down by state, I just kind of did time zone, but again, even spread across the, well, maybe not even, but definitely like represented on both sides of the country and in the middle. So yeah, that's that. And some advice that was also a component of the survey was I want to share the advice you guys had for other volunteers. So as far as, so the left is from Endangered Species Condoms and the right is, oh, sorry, then that's next steps y'all want to take. So for advice on the left, use humor to keep it light. Don't be shy was a big one. Read and prepare, so familiarize yourself with the talking points. Don't take it personally if people are not interested. And then some more logistical things of have additional materials, think about your location, key like talking points to emphasize, and work with other organizations. But what I really like and what I take away from that is the vast majority of the advice is just kind of like you're in control of it. It's your attitude towards it. So just remembering to use humor, to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and not be shy. And it's all things you're in control of in the moment. And then to the right, we have what people are interested in doing moving forward, which sort of will lead into the rest of the conversation. People are interested in educating themselves further. I'll talk about how I can helpfully help with that. Recommending that your colleagues or friends distribute condoms. So bring more people into our fun little volunteer circle. People are interested in making introductions to other organizations, which we love. We love to work with partner organizations, whether those be family planning or environmental, any of that. And then sharing your experiences, sharing your opinions in other ways, organizing kind of fuller event, a little more than a condom distribution, kind of accompanying things. So where we envision the project going from here is we kind of want to build, we want to kind of build a sense of community, especially in this era of COVID. We're all still kind of stuck in our homes, I think. So it's cool to connect with like-minded people. And that was something I saw in the survey, was people, even if this wasn't always formal presentations, like a virtual happy hour maybe, just a way to connect with others and people interested in this work, because there's not a ton of people doing it. Me as sort of like the coordinator of the volunteers, I want to help build your knowledge and increase your confidence in discussing this topic. And I also want to be able to deepen and expand the opportunities to engage in this work and help us improve and adapt our distribution. So, for example, deepen and expand the opportunities to engage in this work. I realize a lot of this work involves like the ability to go out and go to events, and not everyone has that ability, whether it's a transportation limitation or anything else. So potentially having a webinar or presentation about writing letters to the editor and op-eds and giving people other ways to get out this population messaging and help others understand why it's important to talk about and work on. And improving and adapting distributions, just kind of giving us a space to all like creatively talk together about what can be added. So whether that's, doing a film screening and having the condoms, or doing a guest speaker presentation and having them, incorporating into classroom presentations, and adapting the distributions, which is a very real reality right now with COVID, because with social distancing, it may be hard to give out these condoms now. So figuring out ways to use social media platforms to get out the message, or maybe just doing smaller distributions within the circles of people you are seeing in person. So now I dumped a lot of information on you guys. So I'd like to break for questions now. And I think if you can do whatever you're more comfortable with, whether that is putting it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can also decide to come on video if you'd like. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything I've talked about, questions about where you're seeing us going in the future and how you'd like to get involved, if you have a cool idea for distribution and want to pitch it here, go for it.
There's one question that's come in. Have you seen that, Sarah?
I am having trouble looking at my chat while I'm screen sharing, so if you'd like to read it out, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. It says, what is the lifetime of these condoms? From Rebecca.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that means expiration date. And if I'm wrong, please follow up. So the expiration date, the shelf life of these is for like a few years. So I'm looking at one now. These were packaged in 2018 and they are good until 2023.
Wow.
So if you have, you don't want to like hold on to them forever, but like you don't have to worry about like getting them out crazy fast. I guess while I have it out here, in case anyone hasn't seen the condom packages in a while, I can kind of do a visual. There's our sea otter. And here's the condoms you would get on the inside. And on the inside has more information. So I think that's really helpful. People often ask how many flyers we have, but a lot of the information is contained right in here and then goes to the website. And the condoms are in fair trade. Sometimes that comes up.
She was asking about expiration dates, so perfect. And Margot's got a question. It says, the US needs a population policy. What's the optimum population for the United States?
I'm going to be completely honest, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Would it just be related to, I think the question is, how would you know what the optimal number is? Because we would need to decide at what standard of living we would all agree to be living at. So, we know it takes 5 Earths to, sustain everybody that's currently here. And for those folks that are in, developing countries, they also should have the ability and the right to improve their lives and their lifestyle. But, we know that we can't all live at the current US consumption rate. And so we could, have more people in the United States if we were to be choosing to decrease our consumption. That seems to be harder than you would think. Which is why I think it's so important that the center works on these things simultaneously, right? Because they are interconnected. Yeah, she is responding. She's referring to our immigration and how immigration relates to the number of people in the country. So I don't know, Sarah, if you want to speak a little bit more to immigration.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question, and that does come up. This was sort of ideas I had for future webinars, is to not dump everything on you, but kind of like responding to various like the tough questions we get with this. So yeah, the population is growing more from immigration than it is from births within the country. The center has taken a stance that we don't see limiting immigration as a population solution. So that was sort of like, I probably should have hit on that a little more earlier with what our population work is and isn't. So we said closing borders is not an answer. And yeah, we believe immigration is a human right. People should have the right to improve their life circumstances. And again, when it comes to like unplanned pregnancy in the US, there's plenty of work that can be done there. So yeah, and actually, I will make sure to include a link in the email. I'll send out an email tomorrow with links that I'm going to touch on later. And I can include a link that has our official stance on immigration. Because I think that, I'm trying to remember the wording, but it's like much more lengthy than what is said and probably more better worded.
I think it's common sense immigration policy is what we're after. Okay, we had a specific question here. Did you design the Monopoly game? Is it available for use with groups? This is from Rebecca.
Yes. Yeah, I did design the game, and it lives on our volunteer toolkit under downloadable resources. Again, I can also include that link. And yeah, so it's what it is now. It's handouts, and pre-COVID, we had fun Monopoly money that you could print out and accompany with it to kind of get that exchange and get people understanding. We're actually right now working on developing an online version to keep it more hands-free, once events start up again. But, touching things may not will still be frowned upon. So the plan for that activity, and that, it'll be available online, so that might even be more accessible for teachers and distance learning. But the plan is to have it as like kind of a quickie game you can play on your phone.
Ooh,
the same information.
I didn't know that. News to me. Hot off the presses. Is that stat, this is from Rebecca, is the stat on the impact of a child on the carbon footprint based on American stats of consumption, or is it global? I think it's from probably the MIT study, but was that part of the global footprint?
I can back up to the, oops, sorry, okay. Backwards. If it's this graphic, again, I'm sorry, somehow I'm like not able to see the chat, that shows the impact of having one less child. I believe that's based on American consumption. I know the calculations I did for Carbon Budget Monopoly are definitely based on American consumption patterns.
Okay, this is from Arnie. I've had fun distributing condoms in class to my students and at a PillowTalk event, but now that the museums are closed and classes are online, I'm not sure what to do. Maybe you can get programs to make online versions of the games and send condoms to participants.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing I want to hear from you guys, what you need, because these situations they vary all over the country. So I actually just did a poll amongst event coordinators I've worked with at zoos and museums, and it's definitely a mixed bag right now of whether places are whether they're already reopened and just kind of at reduced capacity, whether they have a plan, and then events are kind of their own beast altogether of whether events are going to be happening this year. And as far as teachers like you, the schools have all sorts of different policies from what I've been hearing. So things we've been considering are, Kelly and I have always been available, either in person or virtually. Virtually is usually the more cost-effective option for all of us. So we can definitely still do Zoom presentations like this. I can still send, if you're meeting with students in any reduced capacity, I can still send you condoms to hand out to them. And yeah, we're trying to make more of our activities accessible and available online for distance learning and not in-person activities.
All right. A follow-up from Rebecca. I think you answered her question, hopefully, in relationship to the slide you were referring to. If not, Rebecca, jump back in here.
Please call us. Yeah. Get that right.
So she's asking another question. Which international groups, are there any international groups distributing the condoms? And then do we work with any other of those international groups? And I'll just say here, Rebecca, we don't use the language population control, which is what's in your question here. We don't see any, as Sarah mentioned, it's all voluntary family planning, no coercion and things like that. So we really don't have that in our lexicon. But Sarah, do you want to talk about the international, whether there's any groups we work with or any condoms?
Yeah. So a couple of groups doing international work are Population Connection. If you've been in this kind of realm for a while, I think they also used to go by Zero Population Growth. So they do international work. There's Population Media Center, Global Footprint Network. I mean, global's in their name. I don't know how much actual international work they do, but we've given out condoms with them. And then we've had Women for Wildlife Conservation, I think, gave out our condoms. That's sort of like a caveat there. So usually the barrier to giving out condoms internationally is that if it's just expensive to mail them. So that's usually like if anyone ever wants them in another country, which does come up here and there, that's usually our biggest. It's not anything inherently against giving them out internationally. It's just cost of postage and dealing with customs. And then because this is geared towards the US and a lot of our messaging is around US, I would just feel bad giving them out elsewhere, and then other people want them and it's like, oh no, sorry. So it's sort of a case-by-case basis. Sometimes people take them to conferences. So we do that, but there's not a ton of like mass distributions happening internationally, but we partner with those organizations in other areas of work. So Kelly and I have both done Population Connections facilitator training. So training more teachers to talk about these subjects is just using their curriculum. We partnered with them on film screenings and all kinds of stuff. Just the condoms aren't really a focal point of that partnership work all the time.
Yeah, it's nice when we can get on conference panels to partner with one of those groups that works internationally, and they can kind of talk about the global gag rule and UNFPA and funding for family planning internationally. And then we can talk about, Title 10 and comprehensive sex ed and talk about it more on the domestic level. So that's kind of how we often break it up with those folks. There's a lull in the questions, Sarah. What I was going to do was, yes, thank you, Rebecca. She says population control is generational. So I'm going to put in the chat really quick the upcoming events. And then we did get one other comment or question to come in, but I'm going to put those in here, Sarah, if you want to talk about the upcoming events.
Yeah, no, well, definitely I can cover some of events and next steps, and then give a few more minutes for questions at the very end. So we're doing pretty good on time. So as this is our big kickoff of virtual engagement with volunteers and other events we have coming up the rest of this month, since we've decided to celebrate World Population Day all of July. Kelly and I will be presenting on the Saving Life on Earth webinar on this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And that is part of a weekly series the center is doing. So we have our new or maybe not so new anymore, but our Saving Life on Earth campaign that's trying to elevate the awareness of the extinction crisis kind of to the level of like the climate crisis has risen to. So every week, some folks, a couple people from the center will come and talk about their specific issue areas. So Kelly and I will be talking about our population work and like the very kind of, it's a lot more big picture. So this eventually kind of funneled down to the condoms, and there will be a mention of those, but this will be kind of talking about like broad policy work and all our population work. So that will be this Thursday. I will send out an email tomorrow with links to all this. I know Kelly's also putting them in the chat now.
Sorry, yeah, and I had the wrong link, so hold
on. So we have that this week. Next week, Kelly is hosting a panel discussion for the Story of Plastic movie. That will be next Tuesday, the 14th at 1. Kelly, do you want to say anything about that additionally?
Yeah, the center did a virtual screening of Story of Plastic. So if you didn't get to see it originally with the center, this is another opportunity. But we are partnering with the recycling professionals across the country to try to get them to focus on waste prevention, instead of just focusing on recycling. And that'll be about the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is a federal bill that's working through Congress right now. So,
and if you're asking yourself, what does that have to do with population? It's because that is a very specific, tangible illustration of the consumption patterns in the U.S. So it really drives them, and sort of I think one that's more feasible to change than a lot of other aspects of our footprints. And then at the end of the month, on Tuesday, the 28th, we'll be hosting virtual trivia. So this is sort of wanting to keep a more lighthearted, informal activities to do as well. So invite your friends, get your teams together. Every person will need their own registration link for this. But yeah, it'll be about endangered species, a little bit of family planning, and just also some fun general animal trivia in there. So it's gonna be fun, but you'll also maybe learn some useful talking points and information to accompany your condom work. And this is something we've done, sort of another adaptation of what we're doing during COVID. I was supposed to go do this in person along with some other speaking engagements with a nature center in Michigan. When I couldn't go there anymore, we decided to go virtual, and it was super fun. So this is something, if you have any groups that you work with, we're happy to potentially co-host something like this.
Sarah, just to chime back in here for a second, if you want to jump to another question.
Yeah.
With the Earth's, well, this was from Buffalo Bruce, and it's a comment, but then he has a question. With the Earth's sustainability crossing into unsustainable about 1970 from loss of resources for human consumption, the Earth's human population would have to decrease far below the 1970 data, since we have been decreasing our resources constantly from that period. And then he asks, are there resources for young adults to acquire vasectomies?
I don't know any offhand, since that is not my wheelhouse I'm exploring personally. I heard just anecdotally from friends I know who've got it. I'm not aware of any. And I know that males can similarly face some of the same resistance from doctors that females can who try to pursue tubal ligation. Is that if they're, perceived as younger or not having any kids yet, doctors are often not very willing to give them that procedure. That'd be a really interesting thing for us to explore. Yeah, but.
I was just on a phone call yesterday with a contraceptive counselor who has done a lot of work on all kinds of contraception, but we were talking about, long-term, both sterilization, but IUDs and things like that. And she was telling me that it can actually be difficult to get it covered under insurance, so they, to your point, Sarah, men encounter the same barriers that women have with a lot of this stuff, I think. So yeah, there's so much we could be doing and advocating for whether it be insurance or just bodily autonomy. It's really difficult. We are probably, fingers crossed, really soon here going to be doing a virtual screening of the movie To Kid or Not to Kid, and do a panel discussion after that. And the director will be on the panel, and the topic of vasectomies are part of that movie. And so, yeah, hopefully you'll join us for that. We will hopefully be doing that in August. Okay, those are the ends of our questions. So now if you want to jump back to your slides.
Awesome, okay. So, just wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of the ways to stay connected and some of these things you might already be engaged with since you already have volunteered with us, and maybe that's even how you heard about this. So first step is signing up for PopX, which is our the Population and Sustainability Program's monthly newsletter. So I believe Kelly will throw in a link in the chat to that. That will also be in the email I'll send tomorrow. Just wanted to give a mention of our social media platforms. So we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you'll have our handles are there. We have hashtags for the condoms, so if you're posting pictures, make sure to hashtag. And then the last one is Slack, which might be new to some of you. But this is one of my proposed ideas for how we can kind of continue to stay engaged in communication in more of an informal and conversational way than email or newsletters. So Slack itself, we use it at the Center for Work as sort of like our quick communication. So if I have a quick question for Kelly that doesn't need to be a whole email, we have that. We also, there's, different group chats within programs that kind of allow us that like water cooler chat that we don't get when we all work remotely, which a lot of us at the center do even before COVID. And we've started to use it more for volunteers as a way to kind of allow you all to talk to each other, and obviously us too. So just kind of, it could be a fun way to like bounce off condom distribution ideas, or if you have a quick question, you want to poll the group. We have that. So we will have a channel. There's a link to sign up for Slack, which Kelly will also put in the chat. It'll also be in the email tomorrow. So you sign up for Slack and you'll be, you'll join our it'll be like the Mobilized for the Wild workspace. And within that, there are channels. And if this is all brand new to you, there's lots of really helpful resources the center has already put together for kind of onboarding onto this. So there's a guide that we've put together. We'll put a link to that in the chat, and that will also be in the email. So you would sign up for Slack, join our workspace, and then you message me and I can add you to our channel because it's private. And yeah, and from that, like within the guide, there's like a helpful video tutorial of just kind of exploring different things, but it's essentially, it's a chat room. Those have been around for a while, so if that's what you should envision. But it's nice for being able to share links like, hey, I read this really cool article about population, or you can share files like, hey, I wrote this letter to the editor op-ed, can someone take a look at it? I think it's a lot, and it's a lot more conversational, and it connects to a larger group than just emailing me. So I think that could be a nice way for us to connect outside of Zoom meetings and all that on sort of a casual day-to-day. So with that, we've got a couple minutes left. Kelly, have any questions popped up?
No, I don't think so. I have a question for the group, if I may ask it and they can chat it. And Sarah, I think you were maybe going this direction. What are some topics that you guys would want to see if we did more of these? Similar to kind of like if we were to kick off, say a webinar series with this To Kid or Not to Kid movie, what would be some other topics? People have ideas that would be helpful.
Like, were there any areas that were touched on earlier that's like, wow, I like have a lot more questions about that, or anything else within our work?
We've got here from Rebecca, a stronger connection between endangered species and population impact. Sarah can talk about that. She's
I can do a whole, yep. See, there are some things I purposely did not touch on tonight because I'm like, oh, this could be its whole own presentation.
Right.
So that's great. I mean, that's a great one because I think it's one thing to say human population impacts wildlife, but when you can point to the specific examples of how that happens. So just to kind of give like my quickie examples, all the ones on the condom packages, it talks about what their specific threats are. So I've got the otter one in front of me right now. And offshore drilling is a big problem for them. A smaller creature that's not on the condoms, but I think it's a cool one to mention, the Bethany Beach firefly. It lives in a very small range in coastal Delaware, but it's a very popular area for development. So that's something the center works on to try to stop the development so we can save that species. So then that just sort of comes down to needing more space for humans, that we're encroaching on a lot of animals' habitat.
I'm just, I misspoke. I do not see the common sense immigration in our immigration statement, but I did, this is a chat going on over here, Sarah, but I did just add our immigration statement to the chat. But Sarah will add that to tomorrow's follow-up email. But we just say immigration and the pursuit of better circumstances are basic human rights. And while there is room for debate over the best methods to manage immigration, we do not view it as a way to address population growth. Okay. Right. Okay. So you just helped Rebecca here. That would hook people into it, she says. And she says, Rebecca says, the animals are wonderful, great offshore drilling, plastic vaquitas were saved because Mexico stopped an oil drilling project. It all links together.
The vaquitas are a bycatch, but I'm sure offshore drilling is also not good for them. Cool. So if there's no other questions, to add to Kelly, I have more questions for you guys. So is there interest in this being a regular thing, maybe on like a monthly basis, and we can have different topics, like making the specific connection to individual wildlife species, how to write an op-ed, kind of getting into how to answer the tougher questions. So to answer that, because I did not put together a fancy poll, you can put yes or no if you're interested. Like, are you interested in this being a regular thing? And in the chat, just throw yes or no right now. Just kind of gauge interest. And then the other thing, another avenue of connection that I know there was some interest in, at least from what I could tell in the survey, is a Facebook group. So I know I'm part of like some private Facebook groups. I guess the only barrier with that would be if you're anti-Facebook or don't have an account, you wouldn't be able to be a part of it. But say yes or no if you're interested in a Facebook group. And maybe the addendum, if there's any other ways that you would see value in connecting that I have not mentioned outside of email, Slack, Facebook, also feel free to throw those in the chat.
No Facebook, but it's hard for me to know because you threw out a bunch of different things. People are yesing or knowing which channel. So maybe that can just be a follow-up too in your,
yeah. Very good point.
We're getting some no Facebooks here.
Okay. I mean, that's good to know that people are anti-Facebook. That is useful for me. Yeah, so we've got 1 minute left. So yeah, we've got somebody looking for more meetings. You just joined. So I don't know if now is a good time to wrap it up just for the sake of time. Yeah. Sarah? No, this worked out well. Thank you guys all for attending. Thank you for your awesome questions. I hope this is a group we can kind of maintain and continue to grow. If you know anyone in your family or friends who are interested, please feel free to invite them. I will be sure to send out links to follow up on everything I mentioned tonight, hopefully a recording if I get my tech working, and information about future meetings. But yeah, I think we'll shoot for maybe on like a monthly basis. So the next one would be sometime in August, and I'll probably do a poll about what days and times are best. So yeah, there will be a video of this, right? Hopefully, Sarah. Yes, that is the goal. Joined late. Okay, so we got thank yous and yays. Awesome. Well, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.